Hello, lovers of Nounouche. My name is Mmabatho, and today I'm going to be sitting with Zolisa Xaluva. We're going to have an artist one-on-one. Okay, so you don't do interviews a lot, do you?
No, I hardly have time. It's not like I don't want to. It's just time doesn't allow. Yeah.
But this shoot seemed to be quite a lot of fun, quite a production, getting it together.
Yes, I like to have fun. I'm a
Yeah.
free-spirited, easygoing guy. Any opportunity to just be goofy and play around and be a little stupid.
Yeah.
I play very serious characters, so it's always nice to just be me and be free and be light on my feet.
That's what I wanted to say,
Yeah.
because you're playing yourself here.
Yeah, here I was playing myself, and it's more fun, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Tough to some extent because you tend to overthink it. But I think if I let loose and just be, then it's just easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So who was your first choice to interview you? Because I know it wasn't me.
Oh no, I was given up. They had someone that they had in mind.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with that person. And then when they gave me a list of people, I was like, she would definitely understand me a little bit more. I think as artists, we're kind of similar. You know, we've taken kind of a similar positions on certain things, like in life generally, like choosing to stay away from the limelight and focusing more on the craft. And I knew I'd be speaking to somebody who would understand me as an artist like better than most.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That leads me to my very first serious question.
Okay.
What would you say? Okay, first, do you think there's a difference between an entertainer and an artist?
Most definitely.
And what would you say the difference is?
Well, an entertainer can just be, I think, somebody who doesn't embody what it requires to be an artist. I think what you require to be an artist is to have this ability to have Ilanduga. You've got to heighten the consciousness of whoever it is that you entertain. Like, I mean, you are an artist, you're an entertainer in a way, but if your craftsmanship doesn't inspire, then I wouldn't say you're an artist. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Would you say that is the role of an artist in society, to kind of?
You've got to make a difference somehow.
Yeah.
I think it can't just be about making money for yourself and making money for your family and acquiring fame.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to leave an indelible mark, certainly, and inspire the next generation and the generation after that. Your great-grandchildren need to look at your work in the foreseeable future and go, this particular individual was onto something during a period that was perhaps maybe difficult for them in their time, but were able to transcend themselves to a better place and leave a greater legacy, not only for their family, but for the world at large. I think it's very important.
So would you say you're brave? Do you think you need to be brave in order to do that, or do you just need to have conviction? What kind of qualities do you think are in you that make you want to be that type of person, or to be that type of person?
I think I have passion, personally.
Yeah.
You know, and I discovered I had a passion when I was still very young, and I didn't even realize my passion would lead me to acting. I had a passion for films, like I just wanted to watch, you know?
Yeah.
I grew up in the 80s and they used to make us watch. I was one of those lucky kids who had Mnet when Mnet came out, you know? Thank God for parents who were hustlers.
So you were a cheesecake then.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I didn't get all the Nikes I wanted, you know? I wasn't a spoiled brat, but I mean, my dad and my mom, they did all right, you know, for themselves. So we would watch I remember Louis Gossett Jr., for instance, you know, was probably was the first black guy from Hollywood that I saw on TV, and he had a resemblance to my grandfather. So I was so drawn to him, you know. I would watch his films over and over again, and I thought I was just, or maybe a little bit obsessed with the person, but I mean, it extended to other films and other genres as well. So at the time, I didn't realize I was, you know, developing as an artist or developing my eye and my instinct, you know, for art, because it wasn't an idea that you could you could grow up and be an actor, you know. People wanted to be teachers, lawyers, doctors, you know, and that kind of thing. And I was no different in that sense. So my mom, I think my passion for acting started early on, and back then, I mean, I would watch films over and over again. My comprehension of English wasn't so great at the time. But I mean, I saw the story and I understood the story, and I would watch over and over again. So yeah, man, I think it started back then, and I wasn't aware of it at the time. But over time, it developed, and even when I finished high school, acting wasn't the first thing I went to go study. You know, I wanted to check out other more traditional opportunities. You know, and then
Like what?
I wanted to study law at first, but I was so lazy in high school.
The books.
Yeah, when you look at my matric results, are not a reflection of my true
What were your
intelligence.
subjects? What were the subjects?
No. I did go the history, geography
Yeah.
kind of route, but I'm an artist. I think I was drawn to those kinds of things. I liked reading. I just didn't like school. You know, I didn't understand the concept of school. You know, until much later in life, I was like, oh, come on, I can just coast through life and see what happens. You know, yeah. But as it may be, I ended up here, and by fate, and most certainly not by chance.
I think it's interesting that you mention the language barrier. Anyway, we know that's what makes good cinema. It's the storytelling itself, even when the volume is off, right?
Yeah.
So what does that mean for you as an actor? Like, what do you look for in a performance? Some people will say, a friend of mine was saying she looks for, where is the truth?
That's what I'm thinking as well.
The other person said they look for where is the love in the story. So what do you look for?
Certainly
What do you wanna
certainly
portray?
the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I seek to portray in any event every time I try to play anything. The love will show itself in the passion,
Yes.
in terms of how deep or how far I'm willing to let go of myself and find that person. That in itself is the love. But they coincide, you know. People talk about method acting about being a torturous thing, and I think method acting is a method of seeking the truth, you know. Whatever method you use to get to it, but ultimately what we want, inyaniso, you know, like I want to get to the core. When I play someone, I want to know what it truly is like to be that person, you know. So definitely the truth for me.
Is it true that you started theater when you were 14?
No, I was 15, yeah, 14, 15, but I mean, it was community theater though, like it wasn't like official kind of school, drama school.
I think it matters because you are opposite another actor, you're getting
Oh,
feedback.
most certainly, yeah. I was 15 years old.
And what was your concept of acting and performance at 15?
At the time. A friend of mine dragged me to it, to be honest. I wasn't thinking about, I gotta go do this or whatever. I was thinking about homework and not disappointing my parents and just trying to do the right thing, you know. But at this point, funny enough, of my life, I was not living in Pretoria at that point. I had gone back to Port Elizabeth after my parents had gotten divorced. So I was living with my grandmother. A childhood friend of mine joined this dance and drama group. So after school, I was like, okay, what do we do? You know, do we hang around the street corner and not know what to do with ourselves? Or do we find something constructive? So he dragged me into this drama class or drama group vibe that was going on. And, I took to it like, very easily. And I enjoyed it. I had no concept of it, to be honest, before that. It was just people I'd seen on TV. But I mean, I grew up doing role plays with my brother and my cousins and all of that. So I kind of knew I had some semblance of talent or an ability to portray something, you know?
Yeah.
So when they dragged me to it, I was like, I think I could surprise a few people with this, you know? So I had no real preconceived notion about it except to the fear and then the nervousness of being on a stage and wondering how people would react to it.
So at this stage, you've just moved, your parents have just separated.
Yeah.
Did being on stage or acting help you in any way to deal with the changes that were happening in your life, or were you able to separate those things? How did it?
Not actively at the time. I would say more so retrospectively.
Uh-huh.
You know, sometimes when you're in the moment, you're just in the moment, and you don't know. You know what I mean? But when you're there as a child, you just kind of let yourself go and let yourself be and kind of escape.
Yeah.
I think from the reality of a broken family. You know. And you start playing characters of broken families, and you're like, oh, okay, I identify with this, I identify with that. And as an actor, I always say, you should use what you know.
Yeah.
You know, forget what you don't know until you know it. You know, seek to find that truth one day and then play that. But I mean, between now and then, just play what you know. You know.
What would you say you know? What are the things that you know?
About what?
About life, your beliefs, your convictions, yourself.
One thing I
yourself?
know is that it shouldn't be so difficult. Boom.
Yeah.
Like we set ourselves up to put ourselves under unnecessary pressure about things that are already preordained. You know, who we are and what we are going to be is already written in the stars. Sit back, relax, enjoy life, let it happen. What's meant for you will come to you. That's what I do know. That's what I've discovered over the 40-some years that I've lived on planet Earth, is to take it easy, relax, and let life happen, you know?
So you believe in destiny?
I most certainly do with that kind of statement, right?
Yeah.
I most certainly do. Yeah. Like I said, destiny is preordained, and you just should be as ready as possible for it. I mean, set plans for yourself, I suppose. You know, get a structure going, get a clear understanding of what you want to achieve, and talk to the universe, and I'm sure it will come.
Are you religious in any way?
I wouldn't know. Religious, not. More spiritual than religious. You know.
And what role does that play just in how you approach your career? I'm thinking of two things. There's that famous video of Denzel Washington saying, "Put God first." You know that?
Yeah, definitely.
And then I also spoke to a director, very talented director, Palisa Shongwe, and we were talking about her approach to directing, and it's quite a spiritual experience for her. The energies have to be right. She waits for the characters to arrive before she writes, before she casts. The energies have to be right. Do you does that play a role for you?
Spirituality, you mean?
Or not even, like, is your approach, does it feature some form of spirituality of, I need to identify with this character, I can
There's a certain,
or is it
yeah.
scientific?
There's a
story, I'm going to bring
yeah.
it to life.
There's a certain level of meditation.
Yeah.
You know, just personal alignment. You know what I mean? A sense of let me be centered. You know, and not put too much pressure on myself. I used to put a lot of pressure on myself. You know, spiritually, I've learned to just sit back and get into a space, a mental space, and a physical space, a physical readiness that coincides with the spirit itself.
Yeah.
That allows me to navigate towards anything that may be thrown my way. You know what I mean? Yeah, so there's a certain amount of spirituality. I mean, we grew up in religious families. You know, I grew up in Sunday school. My grandmother to death was always a staunch Christian. I cannot move away from Christianity completely and say I'm an atheist. I'm definitely not. But religion itself is not a thing I subscribe to. I do have a subscription, though, to those that have lived before us. And I do have a belief that even themselves, when they depart in spirit, they are next to God. So the two things coincide. But religion in itself, the sense of we've got to come together, go to church and do all that kind of stuff, I don't subscribe to that so much.
Okay.
But I do believe that at some level, the love of God and the love of the departed, those two coming together form part of my spirituality.
And then, so this to me is like, because as a performer, your body is your tool, right? Mind,
100%.
your body, your soul, and all of those things. And what you've just described is kind of like the mind and soul part of things. How do you prepare sort of your body as the tool that you work with to be on set. You've been on soap, you've been on film, you've been on telenovela, and all of these are quite physically demanding
100%.
in their different ways. How do you
The body.
those things? Yeah.
It's the mind first, I think.
Yeah.
If the mind is in the right place, that spirituality thing we're talking about, if the mind is in the right place and you've prepped yourself mentally, I feel 10 times out of 10, the body responds in the way that it should. And naturally, because you play different kinds of characters, physicality is required to be tested in different kinds of ways, you know? For instance, I was in a show called Gomorrah where I was playing with two women who are older than me, and they're supposed to be my lovers, both of them. Physically, I felt I needed to have a physical stature that could match a man of that particular age. And so, you know, I did what I had to do to eat and maybe live a little bit badly just to gain the weight and just have a physical presence. But very soon after I left that character, Jamil Kubera called me and said, look, in about 5 weeks' time, I'm shooting something where I need you to come, if you're willing, come play.
Which one was this?
Queenstown Kings. It's not out yet. It's coming out. No. To come play a football player.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the physical transformation now had to happen very quickly. So got into a keto diet, carnivore diet, training 3 times, twice a day, like 3 hours a day. You know what I mean? But the mind, in order to inform what the body should do, needs to be strong. So I think more than anything, the body can endure anything that the mind it's told by the mind.
And also just from like a technical perspective, you know, when people think of artists, they think everything is just instinct. They don't realize the research that you have to do, the discipline, the
technique.
The technique, like how do you walk? Your
Absolutely,
voice, how do you project? You know, all those physical things that are demanding. How do you spend 12 hours a day on set and you can't look tired if your character is not supposed to be tired? What do you think of professional training or any kind of training? You've worked with actors who are trained and actors who are not trained. What's your view on that, on education when it comes to that?
It's absolutely imperative. I sound like a hypocrite. On the one hand, I think it's imperative. On the other hand, I'm like, it's crippled a few people that I've seen. I've seen the most successful actors that I've seen in my life are the ones that are less trained than the ones that are trained.
Like who?
I'm not going to mention names. What are you talking about? I'm talking locally. I mean, I'm talking about the ones that I've met, you know?
Yes.
There are guys
they have no training at all.
That have zero, you know what I mean? Or maybe just a little bit here and there.
You have to write down who you're talking about.
Should I write?
Yeah, and Valela, I want to know who you're talking about.
Oh, we'll get back to that. But anyways,
I'm interested. They'll cut it out. They'll edit.
So in essence, I'm saying I've seen guys that have gone through maybe 4 years of training and completed the whole thing. 20 so years down the line, they don't have a real career to speak of. On the other hand, you come across guys that maybe had a little bit of a glimpse, you know, of training, but a lot more life experience and a lot more guts, you know, and maybe have been put in situations in life where they've had to survive, you know, but that is informed by life experience, as I say, but like, sometimes the guys that get trained get too complacent and get too caught up in the training and believing that it will come to me because I went to school. Whereas the guy who hasn't done it all is much more willing to be gritty, you know, to hustle, to knock on doors, to kick down doors, and to push themselves to explore more in terms of the characters they play, because they don't know the kind of techniques that get taught in school. And therefore their work is much more real. It's much more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you names, man, Mmabatho. I can't do that. We can talk about that off air. No, but then if I do that, then I'd have to compare them to the ones that are not.
No, I wasn't going to ask you.
No, I would imagine you would go there.
No, I wouldn't. I wanted to I wanted to picture what you're talking about as you're talking about it. Like
You see, guys, I'd say like look at okay, look at a Warren Masemola, for instance.
Oh, Warren has got trained extensively.
Has he?
Yes.
Where?
I interviewed him a while ago. Jovicho had just come onto Netflix. It was coming on for the second time after SABC. I interviewed him and the director, Vincent Mulo. Warren went to the Market Theatre Lab. And then after the Market Theatre Lab, he would go to the Joburg Theatre, if I'm not mistaken, to do even extra lessons there. So
yeah, but you see the comparison there is that it's not the Market Lab and the Joburg Theatre are schools that are set up by theatres themselves. They're less of the traditional drama schools, like compared to like say UCT or Tux or Pretoria Technikon. You know what I'm saying?
But you
which are the more formal kind of
of course.
training facilities. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. For me, the important thing is Warren has put himself through the paces.
No, for sure. Hence, I said some guys who've had kind of glimpses of it, but have had more life experience and drive, become grittier. Hence, I make that example. There are guys I could tell you about that went through the traditional form of training for acting, whose careers are not as flourishing. You know what I mean?
Look, I think talent certainly is important.
Yeah.
But, and I'm not trying to drive a certain idea
or narrative,
narrative, but I do think there are a lot of people who have had training that people don't know that they've had training, and they discard that hard work that they went through. Because if you hear Warren's story, he's like, sometimes he didn't even have money to go. So I feel like that chapter of his life is so important. And
no, certainly, but let's say within the first maybe 4 or 5 months of his training, he hit a break. Right?
I don't know.
Let's say he did.
Yeah.
Maybe he took longer to catch that break. You understand? Had he perhaps been, like some people I know, who within the first 6 months of training was suddenly getting called by agents and getting work and all of that.
So do you feel training is about getting the job, or
look, it depends on where you are in life.
Okay.
You know, and maybe how old you are when you discover you have the gift.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
If you are at 17 when you leave high school, you end up going to, say, a Wits university. The chances of you finishing your degree are quite high, right? But if you discover it at 23, you know, at 24, when you come from a course that you've done before and the course of action drives you to a different place, then the circumstance is different. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I'm fine it, but I mean, I think training is of great importance. But I think life experience and you're gonna hustle. You know, I believe in a hustler. You know, I believe in somebody who gets up and goes, yeah. We don't always have the opportunities to go to these schools and to do these things. But if you can drive yourself and pick yourself up from whatever situation you're in order to achieve your dream, I got mad respect for you.
No, I can't debate that.
Yeah.
So you've worked, like I said, across the different platforms, and you've worked with so many different directors. Are you willing to share some of your favorite directors that you've worked with?
Oh, Jay, of course, you know.
Yeah.
We've had this conversation. I think he's just a super talent, extremely intelligent individual, and with serious drive. I've never seen anyone who commits themselves to work and to creativity in my lifetime much better than him.
We've done
Certainly
together. It's so
Nako City, Blood Psalms, and Queenstown Kings. Yeah. That's coming out very, very soon. I'm looking forward to it. I saw a little bit of it. It's looking pretty good.
What is it about him that you've enjoyed working with him? Like, that makes you enjoy working with him?
Passion, man, and drive and a fearlessness. You know, he's willing to go to pockets nobody wants to go to, and is willing to tackle issues that people shy away from, and with great conviction. And you know, he doesn't shy away from a controversial conversation. You know, he's willing to peel off layers that other people are too scared to even touch. I mean, you look at a good report. the subject matter there was quite heavy. Saw the Winter to My Skin. It's a silent film in 2018, 2017. Well, a film with minimal dialogue, but like mostly like 90%, no zero dialogue. And it took the world by storm. Knuckle City, the language and how visceral that Tanzania story was. You know, it's just not scared. It's fearless. I dig that.
You did say you like provocative.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah, you gotta poke. You gotta poke. I mean, what's the point? You you can't leave a mediocre legacy. You know what I mean? You gotta leave people with something to chew on, and I like working with people like that.
Of all those characters in those 4 films, which one was your favorite?
Black Wired Up and So the Winter. I play a character that doesn't speak. Like throughout the entire process, I'm in the film. I'm trying to be as present as possible. There's a great physical presence about the character. There's a great backstory to it, but very, very tough to portray. To act words is a little bit easier than to go inside yourself and try and be honest from within and hope that it translates. So definitely the more difficult one. Would I say it was my favorite? I'm not sure. I liked Atnyakama in Knuckle City.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so wild and free, you know.
Goes out in a blaze of
cowboy,
glory.
you know what I mean? He goes out in a blaze of glory, you know.
Yeah.
I dig that kind of thing as well. But the new character now on Queenstown Kings, the former football player, it plays into the whole old typical South African story of South African footballers living a flamboyant, extravagant life during their playing days. And then when all of that is said and done, people don't have anything to show for it. So it's a deeply profound human story and a highly challenging character to play, which I hope people enjoy. General Duka on Blood Psalms, you know, the forbidden fruit kind of story, you know, of falling in love with a princess he's supposed to look after and dying an untimely and a very vicious death. So all of them are quite great. It's kind of difficult to say which one was my fave, you know.
In
but
this coming one, what character do you play? I mean, you've given us the world of story, but what's your...
No, I play the guy, the football player. Yeah. It's like a kind of like a Jabupule, Chabangu type of character. Guys who in their glory days were right at the top.